A vehicle circles in the darkness. Once, twice, 3 times. 4. The engine cuts. 2 minutes of silence. Then it drives away. And when the sun rises over Pictou County on May 2nd, 4-year-old Jack Sullivan and his 6-year-old sister Lily are gone, vanished from their beds. No signs of forced entry. No witnesses. Just a haunting echo of an engine in the night, and 2 empty rooms that still smell like strawberry shampoo and baby powder. This isn't a story about a missing persons case. This is a story about what happens in the hours nobody talks about. The hours between midnight and dawn. The hours when someone heard everything, but saw nothing. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you think you know about the people living next door. I need you to type in the comments where you're watching this from, and whether you've ever heard something at night that you couldn't explain, because what the neighbors heard that night in Pictou County will haunt you long after this video ends. Let me take you back to Thursday night, May 1st, a quiet evening in Lansdowne, Pictou County. The kind of night where the only sound should be crickets and the occasional car passing on Gerlock Road. Malaya Brooks Murray, the children's mother, goes to bed at 9 p.m. Early, yes, but she's tired. She has 2 young children. She has a life that demands rest. Her partner, Daniel Martel, stays up. She doesn't know what he does after she closes her eyes. She doesn't hear anything unusual. She doesn't know that in a few hours, her entire world will shatter into a million pieces that will never fit back together the same way again. Now here's where your heart should start racing. Because while Malaya sleeps, while her children are supposed to be safe in their beds, something is happening outside. Something that will be dissected, analyzed, and questioned for months to come. Brad Wong lives in an elevated house nearby. He can see the Sullivan home through the treetops. And on this night, Brad Wong cannot sleep. Maybe it's insomnia. Maybe it's fate. Maybe it's the universe's way of making sure someone, anyone, bears witness to what's about to unfold. And what Brad hears changes everything. After midnight, a loud vehicle. Brad doesn't just hear it once. He hears it coming and going 3 times, 4 times. The engine roaring in the silence of rural Nova Scotia, cutting through the night like a scream. He watches vehicle lights move over the treetops. The pattern is strange, deliberate. The vehicle drives off into the distance. Brad can hear it stop. Then it returns. It never leaves earshot. Not completely. It's as if whoever is driving doesn't want to go too far. As if they need to stay close to Gerlock Road, to the Sullivan home, to those 2 sleeping children. I want you to pause and think about that for a second. Really think about it. A vehicle, circling in the darkness, in the early morning hours, near a home where 2 children will be reported missing just hours later. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what will. Drop a like on this video right now if you're already feeling that knot forming in your stomach, because we're just getting started. 1:30 a.m. Justin Smith, another neighbor, is awake. He hears a car turn around by the railroad tracks near Glock Road and Landone Station Road. The vehicle makes a noise, then silence. 2 full minutes of silence. What happens in those 2 minutes? What is someone doing in the dead of night, engine off, in the middle of nowhere near railroad tracks? Then the vehicle drives off toward Lair Road. The sounds of that night paint a picture that investigators would spend countless hours trying to understand. A picture filled with shadows and questions and movements that don't make sense unless you know what happened to Jack and Lilly. Later, Justin Smith talks to Brad Wong. They compare notes like neighbors do when something feels wrong. And Brad tells Justin something that makes the blood run cold. He says the vehicle was driven by Daniel Martel, the children's stepfather, the man who was supposed to be in bed, the man who told police he went to sleep fairly early and didn't wake up until late the next morning. Let me say that again because I need you to feel the weight of this contradiction. Daniel Martel told police he went to bed early. He slept through the night. He woke up late. But Brad Wong says he saw Martel's vehicle coming and going 3 or 4 times after midnight into the early morning hours. One of these accounts is true. One of these accounts is a lie. And somewhere in that lie, 2 children vanished. 10:01 a.m., Friday, May 2nd, the call comes in. Jack and Lilly Sullivan are missing. 4 years old and 6 years old. Gone from their home. The house erupts into chaos. Police arrive. Search parties form. Neighbors gather. Everyone is asking the same questions. Where are the children? How did they disappear? When did anyone last see them? If you're feeling emotional right now, tell me in the comments. Tell me what you're thinking. Because this is the moment when a family's private tragedy becomes a public mystery, and nothing will ever be the same again. The RCMP begins interviewing everyone. Malaya tells them she went to bed at 9 p.m. She doesn't know what Daniel did after that. Her words hang in the air like smoke. She doesn't know. She was asleep. She trusted that her children were safe. She trusted that the man she lived with, the man who shared her home, wasn't driving around in the middle of the night while her babies slept. Or didn't sleep. Because we don't know, do we? We don't know if Jack and Lily were in their beds when that vehicle was circling. We don't know if they were already gone. We don't know if they heard the engine, if they were scared, if they cried out for their mother who couldn't hear them because she was asleep. The not knowing is what destroys families. The not knowing is what turns communities into pressure cookers of suspicion and fear. Daniel Martell speaks to CBC multiple times. His voice is defensive, desperate. He says he had nothing to do with the children's disappearance. He says Malaya didn't do anything. He says his mother didn't do anything. 3 people on the property that night. 3 people who all say they're innocent. He brings up polygraph exams. He says after those tests, police should have known they didn't kill the kids. His exact words, we didn't kill any of the kids, or we didn't kill the kids. Listen to that phrasing. We didn't kill any of the kids. It's a strange way to proclaim innocence, isn't it? It acknowledges the possibility of death when everyone else is still clinging to hope that Jack and Lily are alive somewhere, waiting to be found. In a phone interview on the Friday after the children vanished, Daniel says no one from the family left the property that night. They had no visitors. But Brad Wong heard a vehicle. Justin Smith heard a vehicle. The vehicle that Brad identified as belonging to Daniel Martell. So either Brad Wong is mistaken or Daniel Martell is lying. And if he's lying about driving around that night, what else is he lying about? Put yourself in the position of those neighbors for a moment. You heard something. You saw something. You told the police what you witnessed. And then you watch as the days turn into weeks, as the search continues, as those 2 children remain missing. You lie awake at night wondering if you could have done something different. If you should have called the police right then, at 1:30 a.m., when you heard that car turn around by the railroad tracks. But how could you have known? How could anyone have known that the sound of that night was a soundtrack to a disappearance that would grip an entire province? The RCMP maintains that this case is being investigated under the Missing Persons Act. It is not a criminal case. Not officially. But the implications hang heavy over Pictou County, like storm clouds that never break. Missing Persons Act means they're still looking for Jack and Lily alive. It means hope hasn't been officially abandoned. But it also means that without evidence of crime, without bodies, without proof of what happened in those dark hours, the investigation exists in a terrible limbo. Think about the last time you saw a child laugh, really laugh, with that pure joy that only children have. Jack was 4. Lily was 6. They had whole lives ahead of them. First days of school, birthday parties, learning to ride bikes, falling in love, growing old, all of it gone, all of it, erased in a single night while the adults who were supposed to protect them either slept or drove around in the darkness. I want you to comment right now with one word that describes how this story makes you feel. Just one word. Because this isn't just a mystery to be solved. This is a tragedy that should never have happened. This is 2 children who deserve better. This is a community that will never forget the night the Sullivan children disappeared. Malaya Brooks Murray has not responded to requests for comment. Silence from a mother whose children are gone. What does that silence mean? Is it grief too deep for words? Is it the advice of lawyers? Is it shame or shock or the complete psychological collapse that comes when your world ends and you're left standing in the ruins? The property on Gerlach Road sits quiet now. The search teams have come and gone. The media trucks have moved on to other stories, but the questions remain. What happened between midnight and dawn on May 2nd? Why was a vehicle circling that property 3 or 4 times? Who was driving? Where did they go when they drove off toward Lair Road? What happened during those 2 minutes of silence by the railroad tracks? And most importantly, where are Jack and Lilly Sullivan? Are they alive? Are they scared? Are they crying for their mother? Or is the truth so much darker that investigators can't build a criminal case because they can't prove what their instincts are screaming at them? Every missing child case creates ripples. Parents hold their children tighter. Neighbors watch each other with new suspicion. Communities install security cameras and deadbolts and never quite feel safe again. Because if 2 children can vanish from their beds in a quiet rural town, then nowhere is truly safe. No one is truly protected. Daniel Martel says he passed a polygraph. But polygraphs aren't admissible in court for a reason. They measure stress responses, not truth. A sociopath can pass a polygraph while lying through their teeth. A nervous, innocent person can fail while telling the complete truth. So what does passing a polygraph actually prove? What does it change about the fact that neighbors heard and saw a vehicle that night? A vehicle that Martel says never left the property. The contradictions pile up like bodies in a mass grave, each one more disturbing than the last. Each one pointing toward a truth that no one wants to acknowledge, but everyone can feel in their bones. Something terrible happened that night. Something that required a vehicle to come and go multiple times. Something that required 2 minutes of silence by railroad tracks. Something that required lies about sleeping through the night. Something that ended with 2 children gone and a family torn apart by suspicion and grief. I need you to stay with me through to the very end of this video because I'm going to ask you a question that matters. I'm going to ask you what you think happened, not what you hope happened, not what you want to believe, but what you actually think occurred in those dark hours on Gerlach Road. Because the truth, whatever it is hiding somewhere in the spaces between what was said and what was heard, between what was claimed and what was witnessed. Brad Wong heard that vehicle. He saw those lights over the treetops. He watched them move in patterns that didn't make sense for a normal night. Justin Smith heard the car by the railroad tracks. He noted the exact time, 1:30 a.m. These aren't vague memories. These are specific, detailed observations from neighbors who had no reason to lie, no agenda to push. They're just people who couldn't sleep and ended up bearing witness to something that would become the most important night in their small community's history. Malaya went to bed at 9 p.m. She woke up to a nightmare. Her children gone. Her partner telling stories that don't match what the neighbors heard. Her life suddenly under a microscope as investigators and internet sleuths and true crime enthusiasts pick apart every detail, every statement, every moment of that night. What does it feel like to be her? To not know what happened to your own children? To live with the questions and the suspicions and the possibility that someone you trusted, someone you live with, someone you shared a bed with, might know exactly where Jack and Lilly are, but isn't saying? The human mind can only take so much before it breaks, before it shuts down, before silence becomes the only option because words have lost all meaning in the face of unimaginable loss. If you're still watching, thank you. Hit that like button because what we're doing here matters. We're not letting Jack and Lilly be forgotten. We're not letting this case fade into obscurity. We're keeping their names alive, keeping the pressure on, keeping the hope burning that somehow, someway, the truth will emerge from the darkness. The thing about truth is that it always leaves traces. Always. No matter how careful someone is, no matter how well they plan, no matter how many lies they tell, the truth is there, waiting to be discovered. It's in the pattern of vehicle movements. It's in the 2 minutes of silence. It's in the contradictions between what was said and what was heard. It's in the eyes of people who know more than they're saying. And eventually, inevitably, those traces connect. The picture becomes clear. The lies fall apart. And justice, delayed but not denied, finally arrives. We don't know when that will happen for Jack and Lilly. We don't know if it will happen. But we do know that giving up is not an option. Silence is not an option. Forgetting is not an option. These children deserve to be remembered. They deserve to have their story told. They deserve to have people care about what happened to them on that terrible night, when a vehicle circled in the darkness and 2 lives were stolen. What do you think happened? Do you think Daniel Martel is telling the truth? Do you think the neighbors are mistaken about what they heard and saw? Do you think there's another explanation, something no one has considered yet? I want you to share your theory in the comments. Not because we're playing detective, but because collective attention creates pressure. It keeps cases alive. It keeps investigators working. It keeps the public aware. And sometimes, sometimes, someone reading the comments knows something. Someone has that one piece of information that breaks the case wide open. Someone's conscience finally speaks louder than their fear. So comment, share your thoughts, share your theory, share where you're watching from, and whether you've heard about this case before. Let's make sure that Jack and Lilly Sullivan are not forgotten. Let's make sure that their names are spoken. Let's make sure that whoever knows what happened that night understands that we're watching, we're waiting, and we will never stop asking questions. The house on Gerlach Road still stands. The railroad tracks are still there. Lair Road still winds through the Nova Scotia countryside. But the innocence of that place is gone forever, replaced by the ghost of that night, by the echo of an engine circling in the darkness, by the memory of 2 children who went to bed and never woke up in their own beds again. If you have children, hold them tight tonight. Tell them you love them. Check their rooms one more time before you go to sleep, because the illusion of safety is exactly that, an illusion. The world is full of dangers we can't predict and losses we can't prevent. But we can remember, we can care. We can refuse to let tragedies become statistics. We can insist that every child matters, that every disappearance deserves answers, that every family deserves truth. Thank you for following Jack and Lilly Sullivan's story to the end. If this case moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because we have more stories that deserve to be heard, more children who deserve to be remembered, more families who deserve justice. Share your thoughts, your feelings, your theories, and your prayers in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us what you think happened that night. Tell us that you won't forget. Because as long as we remember, as long as we keep asking questions, as long as we refuse to let these cases disappear into darkness, there is hope. Hope that truth will emerge. Hope that justice will prevail. Hope that somehow, in ways we can't yet see, caring about Jack and Lilly Sullivan makes a difference. They were 4 and 6 years old. They deserve to grow up. They deserve to live. And they deserve to have their story told until the day the truth finally comes to light. Retry.